Imagine being shot in your own home, and the police don't believe your story. This is the reality for Tom Philpott, a radical professor at the University of Texas. Tom Philpott's apartment is a time capsule of the 60s, filled with books, posters, and a frayed sofa. But the bullet holes in the walls tell a different story. Philpott, an associate professor of history, looks like a graduate student at first glance. But up close, his 40 years and the scar on his shoulder reveal a life of turmoil. On October 27, two intruders broke into Philpott's apartment and shot him with his own .38 caliber pistol. The attack shocked the University of Texas campus. Philpott claimed the attack was an attempt to discredit his work on pederasty and organized child prostitution. The police, however, found his story far-fetched. Despite the shooting, Philpott was already a well-known figure at UT, involved in almost every controversy on campus for the past 13 years. Philpott's intense lectures on American society's inequities drew huge classes and a devoted following, but also criticism from faculty and students. Every university has its Tom Philpott, a professor who is always at the center of controversy. Philpott's dream is to be remembered among the great American social crusaders. Philpott's apartment holds curiosities like a yellowing certificate of naturalization from 1913, a testament to his Irish heritage and the struggles of his ancestors. Raised by his grandparents in a lower-middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, Philpott learned the importance of education from his grandfather. Flash forward to 1982, Philpott gives a lecture on Ireland, emphasizing the Irish capacity for love and their history of suffering and guilt. Philpott's high school years were marked by his involvement in civil rights demonstrations, influenced by the racial tensions and events of the late 50s. In college, Philpott continued his activism, leading protests and joining the ROTC to support his future wife, Anne, who was confined to a wheelchair. Philpott's political activism continued in Chicago, where he marched with Dr. King and worked with Saul Alinsky on fair housing and Model Cities programs. In 1969, Philpott moved to Austin to teach at UT, where he quickly became known for his multimedia history courses and his emotional lectures. Philpott's involvement in local politics and his outspoken nature often put him at odds with the university administration and his colleagues. Despite his popularity, Philpott's career was threatened when he failed to complete his dissertation, but he eventually finished it and was granted tenure. Philpott's confrontations with the university administration escalated when he protested the appointment of McGeorge Bundy as a commencement speaker. Philpott's marriage to Anne began to unravel under the strain of his activism and his undiagnosed manic depressive illness. In 1977, Philpott led a drive to block the confirmation of political cronies to the UT Board of Regents, but the effort ultimately failed. Philpott's health deteriorated, leading to a diagnosis of manic depressive illness and a prescription for lithium. His marriage to Anne ended in divorce. Philpott's life took a dramatic turn when he began investigating child prostitution, a dangerous endeavor that he believed led to the attempt on his life. Philpott's second marriage to Louise Epstein, a former student, was marked by stress and fear for his safety, but they eventually reconciled. Philpott's memory of the attack is hazy, but he remains convinced that it was orchestrated by those involved in organized child prostitution. The police, however, are skeptical of Philpott's story, citing inconsistencies and the lack of physical evidence. Philpott's critics dismiss his story as a publicity stunt, while his friends struggle with doubt and confusion. Despite the controversy, Philpott's ability to teach and inspire students remains undeniable, even as he takes on less popular causes in the early 80s. Philpott's involvement in protests against U.S. intervention in El Salvador and the treatment of Iranian and Palestinian students made him even more controversial. Philpott's course on runaway children and street hustlers draws hundreds of students, eager to learn from his passionate and emotional teaching style. Philpott's office is a chaotic mix of memorabilia, reflecting his eclectic interests and his dedication to his students. Philpott's commitment to social justice and his willingness to take risks in public make him a beloved but polarizing figure at UT. "I want to live," Philpott says, "to be a little bit merry." Despite the challenges, he remains dedicated to his cause. "Hang in there, blue eyes," he tells himself. "Hang in there."